See, I went live and didn't even put y'all in the green room like I said I was going to. It's okay. Good. We live. Sam?
Hello.
Hey, yeah, we can hear you. Okay, very good. Okay. Welcome, friends. Good afternoon. It is Wednesday. Yes, Wednesday, April 16th. Dr. Tony McNeill here with another pop-up conversation. Um, and I am delighted to host this very, very, very important conversation with some very talented and gifted folks um, to help us with this conversation around church events. Religious meeting planning is the focus for today. Come on in. Hopefully, as you come in, I'd love for you to just say hello and tell me where you are joining the broadcast from. Okay, come on in the virtual room. Dr. Tony McNeill here with another pop-up conversation. You all know I do these from time to time when there is a need. I feel like there's a need to bring some folks together to have an important conversation. Today's focus is going to be centered around um, strategies and solutions for hosting and planning effective church events or religious events. So, religious meeting planning, church meeting planning, and event hosting is our focus today. And we have a wonderful, wonderful panel of folks that have joined us. Hello, Dr. Herbert Vincent Ricardo. Um, Jones, my big brother from Pittsburgh. Glad to have you. Thank you so much for joining the broadcast. And those of you that are coming in, if you know a religious meeting planner or somebody who hosts church events, either locally, within a denomination, or even nationally or internationally, that you think would benefit from this great wisdom that we're about to embark upon, tag them and repost this to your social media page. We want as many folks as possible to join this conversation. And also, for those of you that are watching it in the playback, thank you so much for engaging the video. Okay, let's get to it. Today, folks, I before I introduce our guests, I want to provide some type of framing for this conversation. Many of you know over the past couple of days or weeks, there's been a virtual moment that happened at a conference where a well-known pastor, gospel artist, stood up to receive an offering or to take an offering or lift an offering, however you want to say it, as a part of a worship service or a part of a conference, and insisted that the doors be closed during the offering moment. When I saw the video, the first thing that I thought about that came to me was this is a planning issue. This is a budget issue, potentially. Or I asked myself, is it a budget issue or is it a planning issue? And immediately thought about the ways in which we tend to host events and do things out of a sense of vision with the lack of preparation, planning, and strategizing and asking ourselves the necessary questions to do that event well. And I was wondering if that was the case. And I've been to events, I've been to ticketed events where in the middle of that ticketed event, an offering was was raised or lifted, or there was a need to generate more funds outside of the tickets that were sold, um, in order for that event to meet the budget. Folks, that's a problem. And I wanted to provide a way for us to come together to listen to some professionals and folks who do this kind of work on an ongoing basis, so that we can learn to do this work well and to do it with integrity and a high degree of transparency. so that we can be about the business of spreading the gospel and doing that well and doing that with integrity. So today, instead of pointing fingers and trying to critique that moment, that viral moment, I said, what would it be like to bring some colleagues together, some friends together, to talk and to offer some solutions and a pathway forward for those who do this kind of work, so they don't find themselves in a financial crunch or in a situation that compromises the integrity of the event. So we're here. Okay. So I want to introduce the folks that are going to participate in this conversation and tell you just a little bit about them. Uh, and I have the privilege of introducing first off Mrs. Erin Rachel Mobley McMillan. I'm say her whole government name. Erin is the director of sales at Kempton Tryon Park Hotel. Kempton is a Kempton Hotel and Restaurants, Luxury and Lifestyle Americas, IHG Hotels and Resorts. She works at the Kempton location in Charlotte, North Carolina. Erin brings to this conversation over 30 years of experience in the hospitality industry. She has worked at the Hyatt, the Marriott, Hilton, before joining the Kempton team. She is a dynamic sales director and a proven revenue generator, and was recently honored by Kempton Hotels and Restaurants as the highest revenue generator in the brand. In the brand. So she is the real deal. Erin is going to be joining us podcast mode. Erin, do you want to unmute to say hello to everybody?
Hello, everyone. It is a pleasure to be here. I have worked in the space in the Charlotte community along with Tony, Teddy Andrews indirectly, and I'm glad to make the connection and alliance with Reverend Samuel Green today. And I'm very excited about the forum that Tony has put together just to share some of the experiences, some of the best practices that we have in the industry as well as in the hotel community to aid and lend to the success of event and meeting planning within the religious market.
Thank you so much, Erin. We also have with us Jerry Hairston. Jerry is the corporate sales manager for the Sheraton Charlotte Airport Hotel. She has a degree from Johnson and Wales University, Charlotte, in hospitality management and has 10 years experience in the hospitality industry. She specializes in contract negotiation and is responsible for assisting with the education of other employees while using progressive learning techniques and a hands-on approach. Jerry, welcome to the panel. Thank you so much for being here. You want to unmute to say hello to everybody?
Hello, everyone. It's a pleasure being here today. I'm really happy to meet with everyone and share our wealth of knowledge that we have here in the Charlotte area.
Thank you so much. And I want to shout out your boss and my friend, Shavonda Funderburk, for allowing you to be a part of this conversation during the workday. So thank you, Shavonda. Thank you so much. The next panelist I'd like to introduce is my frat brother and dear friend, Reverend Samuel Green Jr. Reverend Samuel Green currently works as the Chief Engagement and Strategy Officer for the First Episcopal District of the AME Church, where he leads strategic planning, leadership development, and institutional engagement across 7 conferences in the Northeast United States and Bermuda. He's working on a doctorate degree from Pepperdine University. He's one of the busiest men I know. And I'm grateful that he took some time out to spend with us today to talk to us about event design and event planning, religious meeting planning. Glad that you're here with us, Frat. You want to say hello?
Hello. Thank you so much for having me. It's been a pleasure to watch and to see all the conversations you've had. And so I'm excited to be a part of this conversation this afternoon. So, hello, everybody.
Thank you. Thank you, Reverend Sam. Our final panelist is a churchman. He's a flight attendant. He's a man of many, many, many talents. Minister Teddy Andrews, who has over 30 years of HR experience in the global leadership, management development, and diversity, equity, and inclusion field. Teddy currently works as Director of Leadership and Professional Development for American Airlines. He's an amazing choir director, praise team member, and also has had significant experience working behind the scenes with local churches, conferences and events and conventions and meeting planning. So I am grateful that Teddy, that you are here and to share your vast knowledge as it relates to religious meeting planning. And I want you to unmute so that you can say hello to everybody.
Hello, everyone. Excited about being here, Dr. McNeill, sharing with this panel, and I'm ready to get into some great conversation about meeting and planning and what we can do to kind of make sure that we're all on the best foot forward with engagement around meeting planning. So I'm excited about being here.
All right. Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. Thank you all for being here. I'm seeing folks come in. Montisa Watkins, good to see you. My sister, Dr. Amina Butts, Donna Amina Butts. Thank you so much for joining. Okay, y'all, let's dive right in. Okay. The focus today, again, like I said, is around strategies for hosting and planning successful church events. I want to start with you, Aaron Mobley. I want to know from you, talk briefly about your history as a religious meeting planner, okay? And I want you to cite 3 critical things that you put in place at the beginning stages when you talk to people who are planning religious events. What are 3 things that you ask at the beginning? But also tell us a little bit about your history with working with churches and denominations.
Okay. I started out my career in sales within the hotel space at Jerry's Hotel at the Sheraton Airport or Sheraton Hotel. And I was the Smurf sales manager. As people may not realize, Smurf is an acronym for anything that is social, military, educational, religious, or fraternal. And some organizations add an E to the end of that for entertainment. So I specialized in the religious sector. And throughout my career, I successfully organized and managed a number of large-scale events, and including national conferences and retreats, and built strong relationships with key industry partners, being the client, and then also within the community, local churches, and with the Charlotte Regional Visitors Authority, which is our CVB, Convention and Visitors Bureau. And 3 things that I put in place or ask questions about in the process, and they're very critical steps, is to get an understanding of the overall vision. And that overall, getting an understanding of the overall vision balances the spirituality and the journey that the church or the religious organization wants to do, and aligns it with the business aspects of what they want to present. That is very, very, very important. And once you get the overall vision, you develop I want to know what the business objective is. Because when you establish the business objective and the guidelines, you get a clear overview of what the goals and expectations are. And then the third thing is the budget. I want to have a good understanding of what the comprehensive budget comes associated with the program or the event is, so we can together and partner and manage the overall financial piece, the resources that come with that, and then what the hotel's expectations are and what they need out of it. So those are the overreaching three most critical steps.
Oh, that's good. Vision, business, and budget. Thank you, Aaron. Hey, Jerry, tell us a little bit about your experience working with religious planners and the three things that are of importance at the beginning stages.
Definitely. So I did start while in school in the hotel industry at the former Doubletree Uptown. So I was able to work starting with the front desk and really meeting the people and the people that are coming in. And I was able to then work my way up to sales at the now Sonesta Charlotte, right off of Tyvola Road. In that time of growth, I have been able to work with religious organizations and with all organizations, but especially the religious groups. One big thing, as Aaron mentioned, is of course understanding the overall vision for the program, making sure that there's an understanding of what the hotel can accommodate as well as what the group is looking for. Always wanting to make sure that while, yes, you do want to host all of your people, you don't want to over promise for your event and then turn around and under deliver, because every event wants to be a great event, but we also want to make sure that we are sticking to what we can do. And as Aaron mentioned, budget is a huge thing. Some people don't always realize that budget is very important, but that starts in your pre-planning stage, not just once you get to the hotel and you're wondering what all we can do. It definitely starts with pre-planning, starts with the committee at the church, and it rolls over to your visits, to what you're looking for overall. So yeah.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Jerry. Teddy, I want to come to you. Tell us a little bit about your experience and then what three things that come to mind at the beginning stages of this process.
Okay, thank you. Again, I've got a kind of a various background, right? A variety of things I've done. So I started as a church boy. I've been in church all my life. Everybody just threw everything to and said, okay, put this together. So it kind of started off in my teens, which is kind of like, you can do this well. Let's give you this. Let's give Theodore this. Let's give Theodore this. Let's give Theodore this. And then somewhere in the 90s, mid 90s, late 90s, I became a certified meeting planner. So I actually went through the process and became a certified meeting planner. And so probably for the last 30 plus years, I've been either on the church side or the conference side with planning and hosting church events, conferences. I served for 24 years as a logistics coordinator for the National Baptist Convention USA Incorporated. So everything that you would see ongoing at the National Baptist Convention level was actually gone through our office, the Office of Convention Meetings and Planning under Miss Marsha DuPont. And so my role was to kind of make sure everything from classrooms to banquets to general session classrooms, everything was kind of like well run, well put together, well planned, and then the stuff that we took in terms of plans, making them come into fruition during the event itself. I also started my career at the Omni Hotel as a front desk manager years ago when I first moved to Charlotte Uptown, when the Omni used to be inside the bank, the First Union building, the one that looks like the harmonica or the jukebox. What we used to call back in the day when it was first built. So I was a manager there, front desk. So I've kind of got both sides, the hotel aspect, I've got the church planning, I've got the convention planning side of it. And three things. One, know your client. So do all the research you can to make sure you know your client, right? What they've done before. Is it religious? What are they looking to do? How many times have they done it? Is this their first time experience? So know your client. That's the background, history, all that you can. Secondly, know their budget, right? Everybody talked about that already. Budget. So like Sister Harrison said, you can over project and over promise and then under deliver, and then your budget is just blown because you got there and just started doing everything else that was not part of your plan or your scheme or your deliverables. And then lastly, a centralized point person. So am I talking to just a contract writer, or am I talking to the decision makers as it relates to this event? Because a lot of times you'll be talking to a frontline person who's really just taking care of the contract. But then once the contract is negotiated, you got decision makers that say, well, I don't want this. Let's do this. Let's throw this in there. And so your entire contract is kind of blown out of proportion because you weren't dealing initially with the decision makers on the contract. So you got to know who your audience is when negotiating a contract and for the event itself. Who are your key players? Knowing your key players.
Wonderful. Thank you, Teddy. Reverend Sam, I'm coming directly to you.
So I started, just like Brother Teddy said, in the church, as far as being voluntold to do certain things, and then getting a chance to start planning events, probably when I was in high school or even middle school, just doing things around the church when I was growing up. But I took a liking to the professional aspect of meeting planning and church meeting planning while I was in college. So I did study at the University of Florida, and they didn't have a major, but they had a minor in events and tourism. And so learning about the industry was really important because it helped to see a different lens on not just having a church program, but looking at the fact that you're being a part of an industry. And so I interned with the denomination while I was in college to see how our general conference ran, and learned behind the scenes with the meeting planner at the time. And so I continued my practice and started working while in seminary. Odell, the executive pastor at New Psalmist, mentions that every week is a special event at church. And so we are members of this association called the Religious Conference and Meeting Planners Association, RCMA, and it has been a professional development organization that I've been a part of now for almost 10 years. And it has helped me to continue learning best practices in the industry. I'm also a member of the Black Meeting Professionals Association as well. And so it's good to understand what's happening in tourism, and then being able to develop your own systems and practices so that when you're responding to the church as the institution, or even as an individual local church, you're understanding a little bit more of what it takes because you know the church, but you also know the industry. So the three questions I want to just add to it, in addition to budget, I would say the budget from your side as the planner should be connected to your ethics. So I wanted to lift up ethics as a planner, because the church's money that you're using to pay the expenditures comes from the local person, the member in the pews, the person who goes to work, who sacrifices, who gives their offering, and that contributes to the general treasury that is given to spend the funds. And so if you remember that you are being good stewards of their finances to also provide some level of ministry to their lives, then you are seeing your ethics as an extension of ministry, but also being faithful to the resources that you have. And then the third thing I would add, along with ethics and the budget, would be to understand the why. Why is this event taking place? Churches have denominational events range and vary from your jurisdictional meetings, from meetings that are a convocation that's different from a conference. And some in the AME Church, we have annual conferences that are an event, not necessarily by association or group, but we have to deal with the business of the church. And so understanding that there are different designs for those different types of meetings also drives how a budget is developed, how teams are developed, how you even approach the conversation. So if the planner is not clear about what it is that they're doing and what they have to work with, it makes it very difficult when talking to a supplier or a hotel representative or a conference representative to make sure that you're on the same page.
Oh, this is good. This is good. Thank you all for the wisdom that you've given thus far. Next talking point that I want to raise, okay, for a meeting planner or an event planner or church member, okay, I really want to target this around folks in the local church who begin with a vision, okay, that God has given me this vision to host this musical or to host this conference or convention or symposium or whatever, okay, but they have zero budget. Okay, and that is the golden thread that all four of you have talked about. Okay, I have vision, but I have no budget. Okay. What advice do you offer to get going budget wise? Okay. I have vision, but no budget. And God has told me to host this event. What are the key things that that person needs to do in terms of creating a budget that is sustainable? Hey, Aaron, I'm going to come back to you.
I think that the budget, the vision of the event is very important, but the budget is key. And what you can do, Reverend Samuel pointed out the organization like Religious Conference Management Association. I think that if you are new in the industry, I think aligning yourselves or attending events or even going through some of their personal development is key because they can help you put a budget together and let you know what you need to look for because there are things that you may not necessarily be aware of. When you're wanting to put on a conference, location is key. Whether you're going to you choose a city that's first, second, or third tier city is important because that's going to impact your budget. Whether the city or the area that you're going to be in is a union property, because unions drive costs in a different way. Those are all things that Religious Conference Management Association or National Coalition of Black Meeting Planners can help guide you through because there are professionals in there like myself who work in hotels. There are meeting planners. They can all guide you. And then also, too, looking in the community for other churches or other organizations that have hosted conferences before. Call on them so they can let you know some of their experiences and help you put that budget together. That budget is key, whether you are going to a hotel, whether you're going to a convention center, that you're using multiple hotels, or whether you're using a venue. That budget is absolutely key to that. And then putting together, once you get that budget together, putting together a request for proposal or RFQ. Those are what the hotel is going to use to put together a business case to work with you to take your piece of business. So that financial piece, that fiscal responsibility piece is key. And those are some of the things that I would do. But in putting a budget together, use your resources. The Convention and Visitors Bureau is going to be a tremendous guide for you. You can reach out to a hotel and say, this is what I'm planning to do. Can I get your guidance on some things? We're willing to help you do that. So those are the things I think are important.
Jerry, I would love to know from you what are some kinds of categories or line items that should be in a budget, especially if it involves a hotel. What are some things that a person who has a vision and wants to do this event but doesn't know what needs to go into an event budget? What are some things that you would recommend?
I would definitely recommend, of course, reaching out to the hotel and finding out who would be your main point of contact at the hotel, rather it is your sales manager or a member of their convention services team. But the really important things are, of course, the space that you're looking for. You want to make sure that you're going to have a space that is able to comfortably fit everyone that you're looking to have, from your smallest amount to your potential largest amount. Definitely, if you are looking to have food, look at the cost of the meals. We all love to eat, so you want to make sure they're getting
Church
good
people.
food, and you also want to make sure that it's within a price point that you're comfortable with. You don't want to say, oh, we're going to have this big steak dinner, and you're expecting maybe like a $50 price point, but looking within the market and everything, price of food, it may be higher. And you always, even in that, you want to incorporate your taxes and your fees that are going to come with that, because we always look at that baseline number, but we tend to forget from time to time. We have taxes, you have additional fees, you have coverages that you are going to be, of course, responsible for. And if you're looking at rooms, always see your rooms and have a number that you're thinking of. But you, again, this is one of those over promise, under deliver situations. You don't want to say, I'm going to have so many rooms before you get your registrants. And I definitely agree with Aaron. You're definitely going to want to reach out with your CVB. They're willing to help. The hotels are willing to help. All of those things are important. Because of course, from the hotel side, we're doing the background. We know what we can host. We want to make sure that we're putting on a great event for you that's within your comfortability, that you're able to host as well.
Thank you, Jerry. My sister, Dr. Amina Butts, has raised a question that I think I'd like to point to you, Teddy, and then I'd like to hear from you, Sam, on this. What about if the event is at a church and just local and there's no hotels involved? Okay, like a musical or, you know, some kind of other event that is being hosted at a church. What are the kinds of things that you would put in an event being hosted at a church?
Well, going back to your question about, you know, you got a great vision, but there's no budget. Well, let's check out the vision. Was it a vision or just a dream you were having? Habakkuk said, write the vision, make it plain, right? So what Habakkuk was saying was, you got a vision, but you got to have a strategy or a mission to get to your vision, right? Part of that strategy is your budget, your line items, right? That's how we make it plain so that those that read it may run, right? The ones that's going to work the vision or plan that you have in your head. Is it timely? Maybe we shouldn't be having it now because we don't have the budget for it. So maybe time sensitivity is relative to whether or not you need to have this meeting right now. You've got no budget. Maybe you can check out another sponsorship, right? Maybe somebody who's done it before is willing to do it, but do it under the guise of helping you, but maybe they can help support it financially, so that the vision can take place or the event can happen. Whether you're doing it for a local church, there's still a budget required, right? There's still line items, whether or not if we're hosting an event at the church, let's say we're having a men's conference at the church, no hotels are involved, but the men of our church are attending this conference. There's still a strategic budget. Are you bringing in presenters? So you got to have a line item for presenters and budget. Are we going to feed them while they're here? Is lunch provided? Is it a ticketed conference or is it a free will conference? And we're going to be raising an offering. And whether or not we're going to be using general sessions in the church and it's just going to be in one main auditorium, or do we have breakout sessions? Do we adequately staff it? Do we have the staffing for it because it's at the local church? Are the local members volunteering their time to serve in different areas to support the event? Or whether or not you have paid staff. In our church, if we're having an event at our church, every time we have an event, we have to pay police and sheriff to direct traffic because the city of Charlotte requires that churches, you cannot, like local church members cannot direct traffic. So we have to hire police officers and we have to hire sheriffs to direct traffic. So all these things have to be considered at the local level without hotel expenses. That's just another line item. The hotels, if you're going to be bringing people in. But if it's local, your church is just doing something, you still have to look at your budget and whether or not this is, and how much marketing time are we putting out to make this happen? Like, marketing is a big thing. So if we're having it at our church, how far out are we marketing to allow people to register and pay for registration if there's registration? So those are some of the things you need to consider when it's local and just have at another church and there's no hotel involved.
Okay. Reverend Sam?
Yeah, I just wanted to add, and then also to answer this question, that when you're figuring out the vision or understanding the point of the event, it starts with having a lot of conversations with people and to not, before even getting to a supplier or going to a hotel, it's really important that you have a relationship with someone else that can help you think what the event will look like, whether that's developing your team, your dream team as well, because that information, whether you take that advice or not, helps to make you a stronger planner and a stronger visionary. And so when starting out with an event and you might have a zero-based budget, it's important to kind of figure out, well, what's the core elements that's required for this particular meeting? What is it that I'm trying to do? If it's trying to bring people together for the purposes, as an example, for a musical to celebrate the musical achievements of Bishop Carlton Pearson, maybe we're just going to do that. And we're just thinking about, what does that look like? What is there? What's the core thing? We want people to celebrate his music and we want to honor him. So a thing that we're talking about with budget, if it's at the local church, outside of hotels, the largest expense will usually be your AV or production budget. The sound, how it is broadcast, how it is shared for the people that are present. And in the age that we're living in now, there's some type of component that requires the internet, whether it's to be live streamed or if it'll be recorded. So who those partners are, who are the people that you will potentially hire, that's an important part, because they play a critical role in helping the success of your event. And so a lot of churches have sound systems, or they have something in place. And I say this in a nice way because I have traveled this pathway before. Churches have installed equipment, but that doesn't make every church who manages the sound a sound professional or AV professionals. They are church workers that we love and support. But to have an event that might be larger or have a reach beyond your local church, you would not want to make sure that you have assessed the people that are around you, that God has already blessed you with within your team, to make sure that you have the capacity to reach the vision that God has given you for that particular time. And so it is no shame in allowing the vision to grow, to pour into the vision, to learn about ways, because a lot of events fail hard because they try to copy like someone else, or they try to do things because they see it online or see what someone else is doing, and you don't have the same tools in your toolbox or the same resources in your toolbox to be able to achieve those same goals. And so you can have a great event with very few items that you have to cut a check for, but you have to be very clear about what's the most important part of the event, not to try to be Facebook famous or social media famous, but what's going to be, again, back to the ethics. What is it that the people need? We're talking about planning for the Black church or for the Black community in particular, and our community has not been as privileged to the information that has been shared. Hotels and convention centers, while there may be people who are faith-based who work at the hotels, they have a bottom line that they still have to meet. It is a business. And so they may not necessarily understand that God has given you an anointed prophetic word to call people together, because that check is due when it is supposed to be due. And so I think for us, we have to really kind of sit back and look back, have a Sankofa moment. We can look into the Bible for examples, but we can also look into our own history. In the colored conventions that happened in the 19th century, the members who planned that event organized. And from the date, and what happened was they were successful because of their relationships. A young man who had an idea reached out to Bishop Richard Allen at the time. He had access to a facility. And so he told him about the idea. And then from there, he helped to organize people to help galvanize and get the word out so that freed men from across the United States could meet in Philadelphia. It takes time and organization to plan successful events. And it's okay to make sure that you have things, as Brother Teddy mentioned, using Habakkuk as a guide to write the vision and make it plain. It is no harm into organizing yourself and making sure all the details are together before you start trying to spend somebody else's money.
Thank you so much. Thank you, panelists. Go ahead.
Tony, can I add to what he's saying? And it's okay, like the caveat onto what he was just saying. It's okay to say, not now. We're just not going to have it because we're not ready. Whether or not it's strategically or whether or not it's financially, we're just not ready. I think we, as a church, especially the Black churches, like we get in the habit of saying, okay, well, it's time for our men's conference, it's time for our women's conference, it's time for but maybe this year we just need to put a pause on it because, especially in light of COVID, there's a lot of things that are just not happening financially, and you have to look at it and strategically say, like Brother Samuel said, like this is the members' resources, and do we want to use these resources when we know that we're financially strapped right now? So it's okay to put it on pause and say, well, let's keep dreaming, let's keep working around it, strategizing around it, and maybe we won't have it this year, we'll skip a year. So
wow, very good. Thank you all. And I want to say welcome to those of you that are joining this broadcast late. This is Dr. Tony McNeill here with another pop-up conversation, and we are talking about hosting church events or religious events with integrity, with a sense of strategy, with strong planning and support. And I have here with me today a panel of experts from the meeting planning industry and the field to give us some wisdom on how we can do better about our church events. I want to move to you, Jerry, and I want to talk about contracts. Okay, as meeting planners, be it folks that are in a local church doing an event at their local church, or if a church is engaging a hotel or a convention center or venues off campus, contracts are critical in making the resources available for those that will come to your event, so the event and the vision can go off. What are some common pitfalls, okay, that churches and individuals, but also churches and organizations fall in as it relates to negotiating contracts with hotels and with venues or with other vendors?
Definitely. So one big thing that I can speak on is going to be sleeping rooms. We always want our entire congregation to come out and join us. And a lot of people start with a big number of rooms, right? So you automatically go to the hotel. I want 150 rooms a night. I promise we're going to book it, but you just don't know yet. I do a lot of addendums on my side.
Okay.
So I will work with people in the beginning once we're planning out that main number. And there's nothing wrong with starting with a small amount of rooms and growing. You can always grow as long as the inventory is there, but you can't always take that inventory back. So there's nothing wrong with, you may want 150 rooms, and that is great because we want you to have the turnout that you should have. But I definitely recommend start with a smaller number. Start with like 25. And then from there, you're going to want to grow from there. As long as the hotel has the inventory and can, of course, accommodate you all, there's not going to be any issue with growing from there. There's also a big thing now is room rental when it comes to the space. You don't always want to feed or keep on property. Everyone, sometimes you want to take a break from the hotel. You want to move out a little bit, go see the area, and come back. So room rental is something that is essential within the hotel planning. So while you may not have your food on at the hotel, you'll have your space, and you will pay for the best space that, of course, you can fit. And that, again, comes down to your planning and your pre-planning and things like that. You want to make sure with your space, you don't want to book the largest ballroom and you're expecting 250 to 300 people. And then when the time comes, your registration's of like 100. Because you're going to have this large space that you have to pay for. And you may not be able to move. Sometimes you can move, the hotel will work with you. But if you contract a big ballroom, you want to make sure you're guaranteeing and you know that you're going to fill that space, because you don't want to overpay for that. But you want to be comfortable. You don't want a space too small, but you don't want to pay a space that's too large. And when reading your contract, read your fine details.
Mm.
Read the sections that tell you about your taxes, that tell you about the service charges, that tell you about the placement fees. Maybe if you're gonna, not every hotel, most hotels aren't going to allow outside food and beverage. So you have to make sure you're utilizing that facility unless you're going off property and you're planning to take a break for lunch and be gone for a few hours and reconvene. Always read those fine details, because you don't want to sign something that you haven't read and you're just signing in good faith, because we have to uphold the contract as well as you all. So
Okay.
definitely.
Thank you for saying that, Jerry. Now I want to pivot from what she just said. Aaron and Teddy, all of you have probably had clients or experiences with organizations who find themselves in that over promising, under delivering situation, where we win it, we're over our heads. How do we, and I'm not advocating for this, but I know that it happens. How do churches negotiate themselves in those kinds of situations? Or what advice would you give to an organization who finds themselves in a contract that they can't manage anymore? Aaron, I want to hear from you, and then Teddy, I want to hear from you on this.
I think that the first thing that comes into play is that there's transparency. There needs to be transparency on both ends, from the religious planning or the church organization, and from the hotel standpoint. There really needs to be it on both ends, because what happens when you sign a contract with the hotel, if it is for a block of rooms or if it is for space, basically you have the hotel has taken those rooms and space off the market and can't sell them to anybody else, because we are in a contractual agreement to you.
Mm.
Also, too, when you sign a contract, basically what the hotel does is says, okay, we got the contract signed, we negotiated favorable terms between each party. So then we let our ownership or our management companies know that we have the contract signed. This is the amount of money that you should anticipate having when it actualizes. So we've made commitments on both ends. We've made a commitment to our stakeholders when you book a contract, and we've made a commitment to our employees. We made a commitment that they will have the opportunity to work at the hotel. So there's a lot involved in signing a contract. And some of the pitfalls, you hit them on the head, Jerry, but I think the number one is actually reading the contract. Reading it. And if you don't understand something that you read, then you ask. You don't make assumptions, because you are making you are making a business decision for your organization. You are taking the attendees' money and promising it to the hotel. And we're going to allow you some slippage, but we're looking for the money when it comes in. What I would say is that before the contract is signed, because I was told in coming up through this hotel, is that anything that you ask for before the contract is signed is mutually agreed upon. We'll agree to do it or we'll agree not to do it. But when you get in a tight spot, you ask for it, you're kind of at the hotel's mercy on that. So you need to ask the questions about attrition,
What does that mean?
cancellation,
Aaron, what does
F&B
that word
minimums.
mean? What is define attrition?
Okay, so attrition is when it's the variance between what you contract and what you actualize. And what the hotels will do is allow you a slippage allowance. So if you contracted 100 rooms for one night, they will allow you to slip 10% or 80%. If it was 10%, you would only be responsible for 90 of those 100 rooms. If it was 20%, you will only be responsible for 80 of those 100 rooms. It's kind of like a gift because we can't predict what people will do. So the hotel is giving you that. So that is what we call attrition. There's never an opportunity that I've seen in the last 6 years where you can contract 100 rooms at my hotel for 5 nights and then 30 days out give them back to me, because 30 days out I can't do anything with them. I've missed opportunities to sell them. So in a spirit of partnership, we right from the beginning negotiate what your attrition can be. Now there's no attrition on food and beverage. The minimum is the minimum. When we give you a F&B minimum, that minimum has to be hit. You can't slip or have a F&B attrition. Rental fees, as Jerry mentioned, there could be a combination of food and beverage and rental fees. But sometimes there is what we call a rooms to space ratio. It means that you have a certain amount of rooms, but you're using more of or all of my space in the hotel. Sometimes room rental will come in. So those are some of the things that if you don't understand, please ask, because it's easier to ask questions before than if you run into a spot. And if you do run into a spot, that's where the relationship with the hotel comes in, because we may be able to, on your behalf, mitigate some of what you aren't able to perform with. But we have to know in as most time ahead of time as possible. Because if you wait until 2 weeks before you arrive and say, you know what, we're only going to pick up 50 of these rooms, I can't help you mitigate that loss. And then we're going to have a tougher conversation because you owe me money.
Whew. Teddy, can you talk to me about your experience with contracts and the local church?
I think it goes back to the key thing that Brother Samuel said when he first started is ethical business practices. So churches like to overinflate. Doc, I got 3,000 people coming, Doc. Mm-hmm. Bishop, you know, my men's conference last year, we had 30,000 people at She Is Loosed, you know, so I'm changing the name to protect the innocent. So they be ethical in what it is that if you know you're not sure, it's your first time doing it, just go into it, you know, ease into it. Or, you know, just like the flip of that, over promising and under delivering, you can over deliver and under promise. That's a great thing. The hotel would love to be able to give you more space, more meals, more rooms, you know. But if you go in it, a lot of times I think what happens, Tony, is that we like to do that because we know there are concessions that come from hotels and convention centers when we have a block of rooms that's magnanimous, or, you know, we got Doc, I got 50,000 people coming to this conference. So the convention center and the hotels are saying, hey, if you got 50,000 people coming, we're looking at revenue for the city. We're looking at revenue for our convention center. So we'll give you all of the ballrooms. If you got that many people coming, we'll give you, on top of the block of rooms that you say, we'll throw in another 25 rooms on top of that we'll give you, that you can use for your executives or key leaders in your conference. We'll throw in like 10 suites, or we'll give you 2 of our top suites. And then you come behind that and say, well, registration didn't look that good. So you have to be ethical. When you go to sit down with a hotel, you go to sit down with a convention center, you have to be ethical. Your contract is your word. Mm. We used to say back in the hood, your word is your bond. So what you're saying to the convention center, what you're saying to the hotel when you're writing this contract is, this is what we say we will do. This is our end of the bargain. So don't go in it being unethical, lying, and you don't want. You remember last year's conference, y'all didn't have 5,000 people. So why would you go to the conference, to the convention center, or to the hotel or wherever, and now say we're gonna have 5,000 people? You didn't have 5,000 people last time. So I think ethics in our planning and our contract negotiations have to be first and foremost.
And being real about our capacity.
And if I could add one thing to what Teddy said, I really, really like the approach that you took in delivering that. Is that in the era that we are in, we can there are ways for hotels to fact check your attendance, your spend at your last events. They are called reports of convention or pickup reports. And those are reports that are automatically generated after your events are actualized, either at the CVV or convention center standpoint or hotels. So one of the things that is an old school approach is that before we even went to contract, we got a report of conventions from the last 2 events. That way we checked out to see how your block performed, if you picked up on the right dates that you contracted, and if you contributed the F&B commitment that you signed for.
And
All
F&B
this
is what?
Huh?
What is F&B?
Food and beverage. I'm sorry, I'm using jargon. I'll stop right there. The food and beverage. If you signed for $35,000 worth in food and beverage, did you actualize $35,000 in food and beverage? So this becomes part of your legacy, your history, and part of your vision and what you're doing. The other thing that you touched on, which is kind of a pitfall in contracting, is hyper focusing on perks and concessions versus looking at what is legally binding. We're very concerned at sometimes with the number of free suites that we're going to get, the number of comp rooms, the rebate that is included in it. What are you going to give me if I bring you all of this? But what organizations don't realize is that you can't, a rebate, which is something that is included in the rate, is meant to offset costs, whether it is transportation or whether it is convention center costs. It is not meant to absorb costs. So if your block doesn't pick up, and we've got a rebate built into the rate, say $10 for each actualized room, guess what's going to happen? You're not going to be able to pay your convention center bill, and you're not going to be able to pay me my bill at the end.
Right.
Yeah.
So there's a gap. So sometimes hyper focusing on those concessions and what you think you should be entitled to because you're going to bring all this business can be a pitfall as well.
Wow, this is some great wisdom. Thank you, Aaron, and all of you panelists for what you've given us thus far. Again, for those of you that maybe have just joined, we're doing a pop-up conversation around proactive strategies for hosting and planning church events. I want to come to you, Reverend Sam, and just get some insight from you on how has event planning, both at the local level, local church level, and I'm thinking, I also want to keep in mind events that don't require hotels or convention centers. How has event planning changed or evolved since the pandemic? What are new questions and new ways of planning that are now in place that maybe were not in place before the pandemic? What have you seen?
I'm going to stay within the ethical framework again around just thinking about the person and like designing events, particularly prior to the pandemic, but particularly through the pandemic, should focus on being people-centered and also God-centered. But when you think about looking at the human, you're also thinking about where God is also present. And for the Black community, we saw too many lives that were put into jeopardy for in-person events. And from my, at the time I was serving in South Carolina, there were too many funerals that had to be graveside. And that was not an event that people wanted to happen. And because of that, the responsibility, again, the ethics for the planners and even hotel suppliers, I mean, they have a responsibility to their, whoever their, who owns the hotels or who own the convention centers. But as servants of God who are responsible for God's people, it's important to care to make sure that they are well. And so designing to make sure that we are paying particular to the physical needs, but also their mental and spiritual well-being. And so I have incorporated into my practice and sharing with others is that we do not have to plan events 24 hours of the day. We do not have to overdo it in order to please God. There are ways to still worship God in spirit and in truth with integrity, without trying to pretend that it's for something else. I think as I was hearing the conversation around contracts and planning, is that we often confuse events, religious events, with trying to be a cash cow or to be profitable for people, for ministries. And when you are looking at it from a profit perspective, there's a different set of questions and different set of ethics than when you're trying to meet the needs of people and to actually allow people to meet God. That's actually part of the motto for RCMA, is that we are helping people to meet God. And when you're helping folks to experience the divine, that is a different set of ways to develop your planning. And since the pandemic, we have to be more careful to make sure that we are still being mindful of the fact that it can place people into jeopardy and can be risky to meet in person, but it also should allow us, because of the pandemic, to expand our creativity, that there are other ways to gather, there are other ways to get our point across, to incorporate hybrid meetings when possible, to find ways to partner with other facilities outside of hotels that may not have as binding contracts. My generation may have, I'm sure that we are using peer space more than other generations may have done so in the past. There are a lot of event centers or places that can be turned over to host sites, host events, or host different conferences that may not have traditionally done so in the past. I mean, I've worked now with children's museums and science centers and going out to find even coffee shops to hold certain types of events because they may not have as binding or restrictive contracts as some of our hotels. We also have to remember that even in the social climate that we're in, again, our ethics sometimes to take a stand with where we choose to spend our community's dollars. So it is okay to not choose a city or a particular place because it may not fit with our ethical framework for our organization. We do not owe any particular person that may name end in Hilton or Marriott or any other person that may not have us in mind for why they originally were developed as an organization. And there's no ding on any hotelier or any convention center, but sometimes we think that we owe them to have our event in their particular place. And again, when you realize that God has cared and entrusted people into your ministry, your life, you are responsible for their resources. Know that once you cut the check to the hotel for whatever the bottom line is, you will never see that money again. And so understanding the business aspect of it is that we sometimes think that we have no other choice but to go to this particular place because sometimes of the concessions or sometimes based on the history. But what is it really saying to our generations that are coming behind us if we're living house poor or church poor to have whatever type of event, to think that that will be part of the legacy? But when we get down to signing or doing the final bill, final decision, that we're not in the best place. And so to give God glory and to actually do the work that helps to build communities, we have to be more mindful of the fact that we're not just planning an event for one particular aspect. We're doing something that's holistic. And so you have to make sure you're caring for physical, mental, spiritual, all the things that are in place. And that helps to provide a more fruitful event and a more creative event.
Thank you so much, Reverend Sam. Before we sign off, I do want to create some space for any of our friends who are joining to ask questions or to post questions in the comments for our panelists. Um, I truly hope those of you that have been watching will share this broadcast with other event planners, your minister of music, your worship pastor, your senior pastor. Okay, or any committees or ministries in your church that do events, whether they're hosted at your church or at a hotel or at a venue offsite from your church. This is some wonderful, wonderful information that you can keep in mind in an effort to keep your event and your planning and your hosting integral. So I'd love for you all to post any questions to share with us in these last couple of minutes that we have. Any questions that you might have in the comments, and I'm going to scroll back up to see if I see any questions. I don't think I've seen any. Okay. Um, in light of that, I want to go back around real quickly, and hopefully, if somebody posts a question, they can, and just kind of give you each a moment to offer any closing remarks or comments that you might have for folks that may encounter that are on this video now, and folks who will encounter this video in the playback about this phenomenon of hosting and planning religious events. So, Jerry, any final words? And those of you that are watching, I just want to say you can still submit a comment or a question before we log off. Jerry, final comments.
Final comments. I would definitely say feel comfortable asking the questions. Rather you're at your host venue, your host church, you're working with outside vendors, working with a hotel, anything. Feel comfortable asking the questions. Aaron made a great point. If you see something on your contract that you don't understand, you don't have to sign it without having that understanding. Feel comfortable asking your sales manager, asking for feedback from the catering team, from the AV team, what might be best to help your event run smoothly. Definitely.
Good. Thank you so much. Teddy, what final advice or wisdom do you have?
I'm gonna jump in where Samuel left off. He's been on it, and I love it. Bishop Kenneth L. Mose at an RCMA conference, probably in the early 2000s, said something that I live by. If the focus of your conference, event, planning session, ministry meeting, your church shifts from saving souls to savings accounts, you are moving in the wrong direction. So from a religious planning perspective, our focus should always be not just, and budget should come last, what you're trying to make, that profitability will come. If you get the people's hearts, you'll get their accounts. So when you shift from saving souls to savings accounts, you're moving in the wrong direction. I think that goes back to the ethics of why you're doing what you're doing. What's your main goal, right? What are we trying to achieve here? And if we stay with that being the focus, that what are we trying to do with the lives of these people that are attending our conference, our mission, whatever it is that we're having, what are we trying to do for them? Then I think we're headed in the right direction.
Thank you. Reverend Sam, final word.
My final word is for every planner and also supplier. The pandemic ushered in a realm of ways where we examined our lives, and a lot of us realized that we were overworking and doing the work that put our whole lives at risk. And so meeting planners are listed as one of the top most stressful jobs to have. And so I would encourage meeting planners and suppliers, those who work in hotel industry or the convention industry, all vendors sound, is to take care of your mind, body, and soul. If something were to happen to you, you would be replaced. And so there are so many events that can occur. People are gathering. The industry is booming. Black travelers are a viable group and demographic. But if you don't love yourself, love yourself like you love God, like you would love your neighbor, then this would all be in vain. So please care for yourself, and to take care of what you can and cannot do, and realize this is hard work, but when you give it to God, all things are possible.
Thank you, Reverend. Aaron. Aaron, you're muted. There you go.
This has been an amazing experience, and I'm just sitting here, just taken aback with the level of participation and my fellow panelists. I think that there's a mutual respect for this sector or component of Smurf, the religious segment. It's what I love to do because it is very hospitable. It is very authentic. It is very I don't know. I just enjoy working in this space. But I think one of the things I enjoyed the most is that the relationships were formed based on transparency, respect, commitment, a mutual commitment to each other. And I think that, and then the ethics of it, and the hotel has an ethical commitment to the customers too. So I think when all things come together for the good and we have an understanding and we can work through it, it just helps us move forward into creating events and experiences for people. And that's one of the things that, one of the reasons why I do what I do. So I just wanted to thank you all for that time, and Tony can connect, because if you need somebody to help with a contract term, I'm here for you. I'm going to be here because that's my mission, and I think the rest of the people on the panel would agree with that. We have a responsibility to take care of one another, whether it is for the business of something, but we just have that responsibility to each other. So those will be my final words.
Well, folks, you heard it straight from our panelists. They are availing themselves to help you think through things, answer any questions that you might have about hosting an event well and doing it with integrity. So thank you, Reverend Samuel Green, Jerry Hairston. Thank you, Minister Teddy. And you, Aaron Mobley, thank you so much for the four of you hopping on to the StreamYard to have this conversation. And again, for those of you that are watching live and those of you that may encounter the video in the playback, tag a friend, tag a pastor, tag a worship leader and a minister of music, tag the person in your church that every time you turn around, they're hosting something, but they're also getting themselves in a financial bind. Those are the folk that I want to engage with this video. Okay. There should be no reason why we are doing the kinds of things that we are doing when there is help out there to help us do it better. Okay. So please share the video as much as you possibly can. And I thank all of you for joining. Thank you so much. Panelists, I need you to stay on for a couple of minutes as we go sign off. But thank you, everybody. Appreciate you being here.
Thank you.
Part two.
Oh man, maybe that might be coming up. Thank you, everybody.